everyone, this is Gale from PaulGaleNetwork.com, and thank you for joining me today for video game news. It is January 21st, 2021, and these are the top stories of the day. To kick things off, we got to talk a little bit about Resident Evil Village. Now, I already did the showcase live reaction video. That's on my channel as well if you would like to rewatch it or watch it for the first time with me. I thought it was cool, pretty well handled, short. My reaction video went on longer because I discussed the game further, but I want to talk right now a little bit about it because there are some new things that we learned. First of all, the game is coming out May 6th. You can see that right here. It's being released for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. That we knew, but it has been confirmed that it's also coming out for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. If you buy the last generation games, they will be available as free upgrades on the current gen consoles. Of course, you could also purchase it on PC, and hopefully you have a good PC to maximize the game's settings and whatnot. We also learned that a PlayStation 5 exclusive demo is out now, and that later on in spring, maybe around the release date of the 25th anniversary of the Resident Evil franchise itself, a new demo will come out on all consoles, including PC, so that's good. Now this demo right here, where you play as the maiden, is different than most of how the game's going to be. There's no shooting involved, there's no fighting in that aspect, but it's a PS5 exclusive. And in my video earlier, I was talking about, well, where do I stand on what version am I going to get, you know? Right now, if you get digitally the game on PS4/PS5, it has one extra perk technically, which is the soundtrack. So that would kind of lean me towards the PS5 build by a little bit in terms of future backwards compatibility and whatnot. Xbox seems as a brand to be more going forward in terms of, like I said, backwards compatibility and stuff. Like if I had to pick between Xbox's next console and PlayStation 6 as being the system that has all of these old titles from yesteryear, from previous consoles that you can still play, I would say probably both will have, you know, these current gen consoles playable, but if I had to be a little bit more secure in one, it would probably be on the Xbox side. But is that a reason enough to go with the Xbox version? Not necessarily. It all comes down to which game is going to play a little bit better. They're both going to be 4K, they're both going to have ray tracing and stuff, but is there a noticeable difference in terms of frame rate, polygon model, visual fidelity? You know, does one stay more consistent at a frame rate, at a resolution for longer than the other? Because they're both going to be very good looking, very nicely played out games. It's not going to be the difference of, oh, one looks awesome, one looks like garbage. Now it's just going to be two different games that one just looks a little bit better, but both look great. But then there's a talk of controllers. If the games are identical in terms of overall build and quality, the controllers is an issue. Because although I like both controllers, I have to admit, playing on the DualSense, if the DualSense is taken advantage of, that would make a difference. And here we have learned officially that the DualSense on the PS5 will have haptic feedback. It will simulate the feeling of firing a real gun with haptic feedback, and it will take advantage of the adaptive triggers. Feel the weight and pull of weapon triggers for an even more immersive experience. So I had a feeling that those things would be in the PlayStation 5 version. Obviously, the Xbox Series X controller doesn't have that. And what I'm not seeing here, but could potentially be added, is motion-controlled aiming for more precise aiming. A lot of Nintendo Switch games take advantage of this with a Pro Controller or with the Joy-Cons, but you don't really see it too often in other consoles, at least not as often as in Nintendo Switch games. It's nice to have that extra variety. Doom has it, Splatoon 2 has it, Breath of the Wild has it. If the PS5 version had that, that would be one more selling point for the PS5 version, assuming that the rest of the games are, you know, even between PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X in terms of graphics and performance. But we get to hear of its audio, stunning visuals, ray tracing confirmed on the PS5, 4K on 4K and HDR TVs, fast loading. So I'm still not set on which copy I'm going to get between the two. Probably leaning towards the PS5 copy at this point, that version I should say, but I will let you know closer to when the game comes out, and perhaps after I go through and play the actual demo of the two stacked up side by side. Not today's demo, because that's a PS5 exclusive, but the actual playable, more traditional gameplay demo come March or so. I'll download it on both, give my feedback, and see which one's better. But moving on, it is Thursday, so it's time to talk sales. We've got our Famitsu sales for week 3 of 2021. This is courtesy of Chris1964. Thank you for putting it together on the resetera.com forums. I like looking here and talking with the community. It's nice and laid out well, and you have a lot of passionate fans such as myself that talk about video game hardware and software sales. Looking at the software charts for January 11th through January 17th, at number 1 is Momotaro Dentetsu. No surprise there. Did another 107,000, but what is a surprise is that it went up 23% over its previous week. Everything else is down slightly, which makes sense. This game went up. This is when the holidays are over and people are already supposed to be not having as much funds left over to be spending on games, and here this game went up. Impressive. Number 2 is Animal Crossing at 36,000. And number 3, Ring Fit Adventure at 35,000. Number 4, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with 26,000. At number 5, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at 17,000. And number 6 is Clubhouse Games 51 at 15,000. Number 7's got Minecraft on Nintendo Switch at 14,000. Number 8's Splatoon 2 with 11,000. And number 9 is Super Mario Party at 10,000. And at number 10 is Pokemon Sword and Shield at 9,882. That's the top 10 of 10 Nintendo Switch games. No other competition. You do see a good amount of older titles on here. In fact, the only title that's relatively new is Momotaro. Everything else came out, in 2020 or, farther back. But this is a telling chart of probably what's going to be the next few months in Japan, is just this Nintendo domination. And if you go into hardware, it's also pretty interesting because, yet again, this week's hardware numbers went up over last week. You talk about the sales growth from this year to last year. Nintendo Switch is outpacing its 2020 self. Last year it did 96,000 for this respective week. This year, 170,000. Blew it out of the water, but it did better than last week. And last week is closer to the holidays, closer to that money spending time. So really crazy for Nintendo. You could see the year to date right now in 2021. We're still young, but we're at 650,000 for Nintendo Switch. Last year at this time comparatively, it was 497,000. So Nintendo Switch is off to a roll. Probably by now already, Nintendo Switch hit 18 million in Japan. This system is passing Famicom, PlayStation, 3DS, Super Famicom, all in a row. 3DS will take a little while. It has to do 24,600,000. I expect that to be somewhere around June of 2022. But the other systems that I mentioned, PSP, all those things are going to get passed up on. And some consoles, sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. Nintendo Switch has already passed. The majority of consoles that have been released in Japan in the last 30 some odd years, Nintendo Switch has already passed. But it still has a couple of heavy hitters left. So can it get up there to DS territory? That's going to be a challenge. But you never know. If Nintendo drops the price down eventually, where the cheapest Nintendo Switch is at $100, why wouldn't you get one at that point? And number 2, PlayStation 5 at 7,300. I said it's probably going to dip below 10,000 for this week, and I was right. It did even less than almost 10, 7,300. That's not looking very healthy. It makes me wonder really First, will Sony be able to release the 11 million or so PlayStation 5s it anticipates within the fiscal year? And just what is the divide right now between the United States and Japan? And for that matter, Europe, Australia, North America, Japan, how is everything looking? Because you gotta assume that Japan would be buying more. Then again, the software library isn't that compelling for the Japanese audience yet, but surely the PS5 would have more hype than just 284,000, correct? It's a little bit troubling for Sony in Japan right now. PS4 at 3,400 at the number 3 mark, still hanging in there. 3DS at number 4 with 546 on its last legs, and the Xbox Series brand of consoles only at 160. I don't like this number at all because Xbox Series is now doing more poorly than Xbox One. And I thought that this system, of any of the Xbox consoles to come out since the original, this system probably stands the best opportunity to do well. It's smaller than PS5. Game Pass looks attractive. The digital version, the Series S, is a lot cheaper than PS5, even cheaper than the PS5 digital, and yet it's just doing really poorly. But that could be in part due to how much Microsoft is pumping out. Microsoft knows that its market is North America. It wants to hit that. PlayStation 5 looks like Sony knows that it's doing better in the West, focus there. But don't abandon Japan, because if you are a distant third or even a distant second these days in Japan, it's going to be very difficult to win number one worldwide. Moving on outside of sales talk, we found out today that Uncharted has been postponed, the movie that is, to February 11th, 2022. Understandable. I don't think it's going to hurt the film. If anything, it will probably do better for the movie because I don't see a lot of movies coming out in 2021 in theaters and having tremendous success, because a lot of theaters for that matter, I should say, are just closed. Take Godzilla vs. Kong. We finally got a trailer announcement today that the trailer is coming this Sunday. One of my most anticipated movies, in fact, the most anticipated film for me of the last several years. And it's finally coming out March 26th, but theaters in limited capacity. Theaters around me aren't open, so I'm going to be watching it on HBO Max at home. I'm going to love it, don't get me wrong. It will be a blast, but that's a movie that really could have benefited from the big screen at just a big blockbuster opening weekend, shattering numbers of the MonsterVerse and stuff like that, and it's not going to have it. So for big movies like this to come out in 2022, it makes sense. Moving along, I've got one commercial for you, and that is of Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser Fury, and it's a Japan-based commercial. I thought it was fun because this part you're all familiar with, but very soon, here we get some Fury World, as it's called in Japan. Bowser's Fury. Couple of little shots there that we didn't see before. But how cool is that, right? Ooh, I can't wait. There's a lot of good things coming out in the beginning of 2021. You know, for me personally, Godzilla vs. Kong, most anticipated movie of the last several years, coming out in March. We've got Monster Hunter Rise in March. We've got Resident Evil 8 in May. You know, Super Mario and Bowser's Fury, a February release. Even though I won't be buying a new red Nintendo Switch, that's exciting to see. Exciting to talk about hype. Mortal Kombat movie coming out. 2021 is off to a good start. Zelda's 35th anniversary. New Pokemon Snap coming out in April. Pokemon's 25th anniversary for that matter. Resident Evil's 25th anniversary. Yeah, we got some good stuff. Okay, and finally today, Fortnite is getting 2 new characters, Sarah Connor and the T-800. And that's kind of cool. This game, like I said, is doing a bit of a Smash Bros when it comes to bringing in characters from unlikely places or perhaps likely places. Maybe you anticipated this happening, but I'm pretty happy. You know, you've got Kratos, you've got Master Chief, now we've got Terminator, Sarah Connor. I'm liking what I'm seeing. You know, even Mandalorian's in the crew, so that's fun. All right, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy today. A lot of cool things to talk about, even outside of video gaming. You probably watched on my channel the Godzilla vs. Kong poster and the breakdown. I'm pretty hyped. That's going to do today for video game news, though. Hope you all have a good one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.